Welcome to the Good Divorce Show, where we can help you learn how to navigate the journey of divorce with less conflict, less debt, and equip you not to just get divorced, but also learn how to be divorced. Your host, certified divorce coach Karen McNenny, shares her wealth of knowledge, gets advice from other relationship experts, and interviews couples who learn how to have a good divorce, so you can too. Now here's your host, Karen.
Well, hello. Welcome back to the Good Divorce Show. I am celebrating you for taking time today to consider a less adversarial approach. Have you wondered if there is even a lawyer in the world who would guide and support you through this process? Have you wondered if there's a possibility that someday you and your former spouse could actually vacation together? Have you ever wondered if there was a lawyer who found another path in supporting families? We are going to answer all those questions today because we are talking with Andrea Vacca. She is the founder of Vacca Family Law Group in Manhattan. It is a boutique law firm focused on non-adversarial divorce. Just that right there. Non-adversarial divorce and family law matters, which of course often include divorce, separation, prenuptial, postnuptial agreements. Andrea has a background in traditional divorce litigation. She's been there, seen it, done it. She now exclusively helps her clients find amicable divorce solutions outside of court. She is a widely recognized collaborative divorce attorney and mediator, former president of the New York Association of Collaborative Professionals, author of the book, Divorce Without Court, A More Peaceful Solution, and creator and host of A Better Divorce podcast, currently on hiatus, but there are evergreen episodes out there for you to find on the Better Divorce podcast. In addition to her law degree, Andrea holds a certificate in positive psychology and recently became a certified positive psychology coach. She regularly applies positive psychology principles in her work to help her clients navigate divorce, including having a growth mindset, being resilient, and encouraging mindfulness, helping individuals emerge stronger and more empowered on the other side of the divorce. It sounds dreamy. Welcome to the show, Andrea.
Thank you, Karen. It is a little dreamy, I guess.
Yeah, I think you and I are singing off the same page of music and really see an opportunity to create a different experience for people. It doesn't have to be litigation. It doesn't have to be adversarial. And as I always say, divorce is not a weapon. It's a tool. So Andrea, I want to go back in the archives of your life and just hear a little bit about your time as a litigating a lawyer in family law and really what compelled you to change how you practice law.
Well, I always wanted to be a litigator. I thought that's why, because I really wanted to. I thought I wanted to be in the courtroom and I loved family law. So that's what I focused on. I thought, best of both worlds, helping families and people, individuals, and fighting for them, right? But I realized after about 7 years, I really didn't like being a lawyer. I thought that's what it was. I heard myself using the words crapshoot way too many times. Going to court felt like a crapshoot. No one was ever happy. Even if you thought you did an amazing job for your clients, they were, whether you won or lost or something in between, the clients weren't truly happy because it was such a hellish journey to get to whatever it was. It was a simple motion or a trial, whatever it was. It sucked the life out of them and only made them feel even worse about their spouse, and usually was hurting their children. Yeah. So I took a break, actually. I decided to, I moved to New York. I had been living in upstate New York in a town called Saratoga Springs, a lovely place to live. But I realized I didn't think I wanted to be a lawyer anymore. I took 2 years off from being a lawyer and did
recovery.
I did legal recruiting for a couple of years and then really missed being a lawyer. So went back to matrimonial law. And again, just something was not quite right. Then I was at a meeting. It was 2004, 21 years ago. I was sitting at a meeting at the New York City Bar Association. And a speaker came in to talk to our committee, our matrimonial committee, about collaborative divorce. I'd never heard of it. And Karen, as this person was standing behind me, because I was at one end of the table and they were presenting behind me. And it was like this, as they were talking about the collaborative divorce process, It was like a light shining down on this long table. Imagine 30 matrimonial lawyers sitting at this table, and this long light, like a runway, was shined down. I'd never experienced anything like that. That's my path. I have to follow this. I can't believe what I was hearing. 2 attorneys working together, agreeing not to litigate, focusing on what was important to each party, coming to an agreement without court. Back then, it was just lawyer-only process. There weren't divorce coaches and financial professionals part of the team. So anyway, I got the training. For that, I became a mediator. I'd never even thought about mediating until then.
Oh, wow.
I got mediation training, collaborative training. And so after that, for about 5 years, I did both. I would still work in the court. I would, help couples outside of court. And I realized it was really difficult for me to wear both hats in a day. I'm a litigator. I'm a collaborator. I had to choose. Some people can do both. I couldn't. So I chose collaborative. I chose non-adversarial. And now it's been about 15 years that I haven't litigated. I haven't taken a new divorce case and, litigation case in all that time. And my entire firm now is non-adversarial. And it's just such a better way to help clients. I realized I thought I wanted to litigate because I like to advocate. I don't like to fight. Litigation is very about fighting, taking things personally. And the attorneys can make it even worse for the couple. So
can you repeat that? Sometimes
the attorneys can make it worse for the couple.
And again, I want to call attorneys into this conversation, not call them out, not shame them. You are trained, my understanding is to advocate for your client, like to the death. Double down. That's what court is about. And sometimes we do need someone who is fighting for us because we're fighting against something. But in family, the other person on the other side of that conversation is someone you had a love story with, that you potentially have children with, that you're going to grow old with and share grandchildren. So why would we possibly want to destroy these 2 humans or add to already what is a heartbreaking, such a difficult journey? So calling in attorneys to really think about, as you have, is there a different way I can help families as a mediator, as a collaborative divorce lawyer, as a neutral, to help pro se couples who are just really simple. They don't want to fight. They just want to get unmarried. Can you help us do it? You really highlight the how we get divorced casts this long shadow over the couple, the family. Obviously, if you don't have children, it's a little easier to separate and move on, but there's children behind you. So say more about this how philosophy and how you do that in your firm.
I'm happy to do that. And, the reason I've known this, but something really clicked for me. Around the time that I decided to stop litigating, my father passed away. And I found in his papers all like a handwritten, I think it was like 16 pages of legal sized notes, what appeared to be answering all the allegations that my mother had made against him in their divorce. Because
are you a child of divorce?
Yes, I am.
And how old were you when that began?
I was like 20, 21, around then. Yeah, I'm the oldest of 4, so I knew they were unhappy for a long time, but my mother finally made the decision. And my mother and father didn't talk for 10 years after their divorce.
Oh.
And it was painful. It was so hard for the whole family. My father wouldn't be in photos at my sister's wedding if my mother was in the photo. It's just terrible. Really ridiculous behavior. And I could never understood what happened. It looked fair on paper. He got the 2 houses. She kept her business. They shared custody of my brother. What was he so mad about? Well, I found this pad. And even though, because back then in New York, you had to prove fault in your divorce. So even though they never ended up in court, they went through all the allegations. Like she had to bring up all the terrible things he ever did to her, or to us, or to whatever, and he had to answer them. And that clicked for me in that moment. That in a traditional divorce negotiation, even if you're not in court, your attorneys are asking you to dig up the past. What did they do? What did you do? What did they didn't do? How terrible were they? Even if You don't even need to do that anymore in New York, but that's still the mentality. So how you divorce matters, because if you're with attorneys that are encouraging you to think about all those terrible things that somebody did to you in the past, instead of looking to the future and looking to where you are now and where you want to be, and let me help you get there. Let me help you go where you want to be. You're leaving the past behind. Let's leave it. So that is why how you divorce matters. So finding the right process to keep you out of court. Mediation might be good. It might not be. You might not have the right dynamic for mediation. So how you divorce matters in what process you choose, even if you stay out of court. So there's different levels to that how, but that's where it comes from, and that's what it's about for me.
I want to drill in a little bit about no fault divorce, because it's being challenged currently around the country again. And we are chatting on St. Patrick's Day, 2025. And you're probably a little more plugged in, but you bring up in your own experience as a child of divorce, and it breaks my heart to hear that story. And it's not uncommon, and it is not necessary. But when the journey of divorce is so damaging, the shadow, not only for the parents not talking, but I'm sure you and your siblings, as you said, and how you had to continue to navigate that parent relationship and couldn't have one whole life of joy, right? You had to kind of bifurcate your life, it sounds like,
Yes.
right down to the day of the wedding. So like you said, there can be a lot of damage done, and especially when the law was that you had to prove it. So dig a little deeper into that, and why no fault came to pass, and why it's important, and the concerns about that being taken away in states.
Yeah, I mean, New York, as progressive as we're thought to be here in New York, we were the 50th state to have no fault divorce.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the era in which this was happening? And do you know anything about the movement? And
I don't know.
research?
I mean, it was, I think it was 2009 when we finally got it. It was not that long ago.
No.
Yes.
Less
Might have been 2008. I don't know, 2010, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and all I know is we were the only ones that didn't have it. And then we finally got it. And a lot of people pushed back, thinking it would hurt women because men could leave them more easily. 70% of divorces are initiated by women. It was holding women back. And my great fear about taking away no fault divorce is making women stay in unhappy marriages and maybe abusive marriages. It's so much healthier to know that you can leave a marriage without having to prove that somebody hurt you, because that just makes it more dangerous to have to prove it.
Yes. And then the retribution that might come from that, the retaliation. And if you're in a story of domestic violence, it's not even safe enough to go forth and tell the story to get yourself free. I mean, it is quite oppressive to have to prove. And I would also add, and I'm curious if you have found this, I have a philosophy that most of us wait too long. We just stay in our marriages too long until it starts getting really bad so we can justify it. Like, we don't even have to prove it to the court, but we feel like we have to prove it to the jury of family and friends. And if it's just not good compatibility and it's causing enough strain to create high conflict in the house, and that's not good for kids. And if we just lived in two homes and could create a functional family, which is what my husband and I have tried to do for 15 years, and I'm proud of our good divorce. But when we don't see a runway, an exit ramp that is socially acceptable to take, unless there's a dumpster fire, then we start fires. Trouble starts to sneak up. So, and I think the couple can really disintegrate so that someone can turn around and say, see this? See how bad this is? This is why I need to get divorced. Right. Versus we've come to an intellectual awareness that our marriage is not compatible and we would like to find an easy exit strategy. So this theory of staying too long, and when people arrive at your firm, what kind of themes and patterns do you notice around that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you that people stay much longer, because they're trying. No one wants to just give up on marriage, especially.
You should try. You should absolutely try. But we know our truth long before we speak it.
I was just speaking with somebody today, just before we started our conversation, and I was acknowledging to her like a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, when she first came to me, the weight, her sadness and her fear, and just wanting the story that she thought she was marrying and into, and thought she'd have this certain life with her husband and their children, and it just wasn't to be. And it was really hard for her to accept that and to give up on it. Yet it was so dysfunctional. She had to keep going to move to this point. We just got her separation agreement signed. But many people stay decades too long, years too long, not months. We're not talking months. We're talking years and decades of unhappiness. I'm working with a client right now who says from year one of a 28-year marriage, she's been unhappy. Knew he was cheating. He was having affairs.
Yeah.
I spoke to somebody else the other day whose fiance started having affairs before the marriage, and then it continued during the marriage. So I don't know exactly what causes. You would be the better person to know why people stay so long, but being able to move forward takes great courage. I know that picking up that phone, typing that first email, reaching out to me or any lawyer is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, because it's making it real that you are choosing to be happy and to look into what it will take to move past this unhappy marriage.
And again, not seeing divorce as the weapon to use against your former spouse, but use it as a tool to improve that primary relationship, to improve the function of the family. That, again, is one of the options. And when you start with a coach, a mental health professional, a consultant, a collaborative team like Andrea has at her firm, I always say how we begin is often how we end. So when you talk about these two categories, or any category of why people stay too long, and it can be financial stability, it can be religious reasons, it might be shame related. A lot of times we are in couples counseling. I think most people are in couples counseling before they make the, and absolutely, I'm pro family, I'm pro marriage. Let's have better ones of those that last, but we're still having divorces. So let's make those better. And another category of staying is stay for the kids. Let's wait till everyone graduates from high school. Well, they live in a house that's either full of conflict, toxicity, or ambivalence. You were there, Andrea, and you were on the other side of high school as a launching young adult whose nest just got separated, and there's no precedent for you or a parenting plan of how to navigate this new renovated family. So I'm wondering if you would share a bit about the home that you were living in that marriage that was waiting to divorce, and then what it meant for you as a young adult.
Yeah. Well, I was living in a home where I thought there might be a divorce for 10 years before it actually happened. I remember at like 12 saying, Mom, why don't you you're so unhappy. Why don't you just divorce him, divorce our father? I didn't even know people divorced. I didn't even know what that meant, but I just knew it was an option, and she seemed really unhappy, but she didn't do it. When it finally, and I knew she, for years, I saw this, they were so not compatible.
Yeah.
When
What
she
did
finally
that
told me, excuse me?
I was just curious, what did that marriage look like through a child lens? And I know you have younger siblings that were still in school and in the home, but what were you experiencing as a child living under those conditions?
Their conflict, my father dealt with conflict through the silent treatment, and wouldn't talk or wouldn't go in a different room, or so it was just a lot of tension all the time. There had been a lot of financial struggles that they'd gotten through and were getting better, but they weren't connected, and it just didn't seem like a happy marriage. And all those silent all that silence it's very damaging to watch that in a relationship, to watch your parents deal with conflict in such an unhealthy way. Of course that's going to carry into your own relationships later. So
And
I didn't get married.
to not see a model of a loving marriage, which
Yeah.
was my parents as well, who still in their 80s have chosen not to divorce.
Oh.
But they kind of behave like divorced individuals. And, I don't pretend to understand, but it's not an uncommon story, especially of a certain age and era. So take us to that moment you were going to
Okay.
say when your mom did finally share with you.
Yeah. So I was actually doing my semester abroad. I was in Denmark. And I remember I was on a payphone at the end of the dorm hall, talking to my mom. And she says, I can't remember if she said, I'm moving out this weekend or I just moved out. I don't know. It was like it was going to be a complete surprise to my father. She had this whole plan of how she was doing it, or she had done it. I can't remember now. And I started crying and I said, what about our family? I'm not going to have a family anymore. And she was shocked because all these years I've been saying, divorce them. But I didn't know what that meant. I didn't think about me. I was just thinking about her. And now in the moment, it was like, holy crap, I'm not going to have a family. Because I knew that they would not be able to manage this very well.
Hmm.
And then, like I said, for 10 years, they didn't talk to each other. And it was very, very difficult, to navigate that with grandchildren being born and weddings and graduations and, to have parents that are not talking to each other.
Oh, yeah. And thank you for opening up your heart and sharing that as a reminder to our listeners that there is a different path and silence is not typically one of the beneficial ones. We're going to head into a break. We're chatting today with Andrea Vacca, the founder of Vacca Family Law Group in Manhattan. She is a mediator, a collaborative divorce lawyer, a recovering family law litigator, and a child of divorce. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you thinking about getting divorced? Before you call a lawyer, call the Good Divorce Coach, Karen McNenny, a certified divorce counselor, co-parenting specialist, and mediator. Karen's signature Good Divorce experience will guide you through your divorce journey from the day you make that difficult decision to the day the decree is signed, all for a predictable fee. The Good Divorce Coach will teach you and your partner how to get divorced and be divorced with less conflict and less debt. Visit thegooddivorcecoach.com to get in touch with Karen.
Now, back to the show with Karen.
Welcome back. Thanks for hanging in there today. We are talking with Andrea Vacca. She is a collaborative divorce lawyer, a mediator, and the founder of Vacca Family Law Group in Manhattan. So if you're in New York, this might be an organization, a firm that you can partner with. Andrea, where do people find you and what would you say to our New York listeners?
Well, hello, New York listeners. We are in Manhattan, but we can work all over the state. And the best way to reach us is through our website, vaccalaw.com. And we have lots of blogs and materials and podcasts and videos. So lots of information there. And then you can just contact us through there as well.
That's right. And listeners around the United States and the globe, Vacca is VACCA, vaccalawgroup.com. And your podcast currently on hiatus, but A Better Divorce, right? We are sisters and a force here pioneering a new way to look at divorce and guide families through it. Where do families get it wrong? Where do people get it wrong?
Well, one way I think where they get it wrong is thinking just because perhaps trust has been fractured in the marriage for some reason. It could be there was adultery, financial betrayal, or something small like she never went back to work. She said she'd go back to work and never went back to work. It could be trust can get fractured in many ways, and people come out of marriages with or thinking they're going to leave a marriage where trust was injured and that it's going to have to be a high conflict divorce, that they're going to have to fight and they can never trust this person to do anything or keep their word again. So that's a huge issue, and it's untrue. It's absolutely untrue.
Say more.
And what we do in our non-adversarial divorce practice is try to find ways to rebuild trust in small ways from the very beginning. if they're meeting with us as a mediator or collaborative divorce attorneys, there are certain things people have to do just to get the process started. So let's show each other, let's show yourself and others that you can do what you say you're going to do. Maybe it's just signing this by this date or getting the documents in on time and reinforcing that people have met agreements. Then maybe it moves to, let's make a plan, an agreement on what we're going to do around this holiday for the children, or how we're going to navigate sharing a home together. So we try to help them build retrust in small ways throughout the process, so that they can know that they can trust each other to make bigger decisions as well and keep their word. So that's one thing. Just because there is distrust doesn't mean it has to be high conflict.
Yeah.
The other thing is thinking because you had a high conflict marriage, you must litigate and you must fight. Again, if you have the right attorneys modeling collaborative behavior, which means how they talk to each other, their tone of their emails, the consideration that they give your spouse when you're in a room together, and how we talk directly to each other and we really care about what is important to each of you, that kind of behavior helps to model how they can be less conflicted and less high conflict, I guess is the better word. So those are two things that I think people get wrong. The other thing I think people get wrong is choosing mediation because it's less expensive. If it's the wrong process for you, it will be more expensive. So choose your process wisely. I think it's a bit like sometimes like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Litigation might be too little. Litigation's way too hard, too much. Maybe collaborative divorce is the better option sometimes, or a negotiated agreement with two attorneys who are not going to litigate with you. So, find the process that really suits who you are and what your dynamic is with your spouse. Otherwise, you're going to spend money you don't need to spend.
Yeah, I like that Goldilocks. Like, try out. I always say it's like shopping for shoes. You better try on a couple pairs. Make sure you have the right fit. And for both of you, it really needs to be both people solid in that decision, or resentment is going to build from right out of the gate.
Yes.
And I really want to highlight this conversation around how the professionals behave. And when you are interviewing for your team, listener, take to heart, how are they already talking about your former spouse or their approach? And does that align with you? And I would go as far as to say, Andrea, behavior is contagious.
Yes.
So what are you spreading? And when those professionals maintain a neutral, calm, collaborative, we even sometimes talk about dropping the tokens of goodwill. So I might say to a client, well, your spouse yesterday was telling me how beautiful every birthday party is because you are always standing behind those special moments. And just where we can sprinkle, like you said, rebuilding that trust and that goodwill, because they're shredded. It is a grief death process. And oftentimes that anger and high conflict is just a way to cover up those really tender parts. So I appreciate that framing of how is the professional going to behave in the situation. So watch for that.
It is so important. That I once was in a courtroom and the other attorney, can I curse on here?
Go for it.
I was advocating, fighting for my client to the judge, and under his breath he said, "You're an asshole." Like, did you just call me an asshole in the middle of court? Are you kidding me? Like, what are you?
And that was the attorney.
That was the attorney, because he was taking this case so personally. I was doing my job. He was doing his job, but
right.
And I don't see that often in the kinds of attorneys we're generally working with. We do have, of course, some cases I have right now. I see it, but these are litigators. People who litigate, unfortunately, I don't know why, there's this lack of barrier between you and your client. And it's very damaging. It doesn't help your client when you're that enmeshed with them.
Yeah. And that's why here in the Good Divorce movement, we're just trying to right size the legal part of your divorce. And you do need to get legally divorced, but you also need to be supported as you exit that process, so you know how to be a functional divorced family. So you don't spend 10 years not talking to each other and causing a scene at your children's wedding. Hello, grown-ups. Be the grown-ups. Now, you worked with a couple. I'd love to hear some case studies before we wrap up today that was in a high conflict situation. And they had this wonderful tradition of vacationing together. Most of us do, like the same place, the same house. We always go to that lake. We go to that beach house. And now suddenly, who's going to get the vacation? Tell us how you saw this couple navigate that situation.
Yeah. So the couple was one of the highest conflict couples I ever worked with. One of the parties had an extreme anger management issue. I mean, it was diagnosable. I don't know how you diagnose this or what it's called, but it was very, very bad. It was a collaborative divorce. Full team, mental health professional on the team, the financial neutral, the two dedicated, really well-trained collaborative divorce attorneys who knew and liked each other. But it was hard. It was a very hard case. And one of the things was they'd always vacationed together at a certain place. And they always went to the same, I think it was a beach town. And before the divorce, they were always there together. And then during the divorce, which took, over a year, so probably 2 summers, they ended up, one would go for 2 weeks and then the other one would arrive and take, the kids would stay and then the other one would leave. So they still rented the house, but it was 2 weeks for each parent.
Great solution.
And, yeah. So that was good enough. They didn't have to be, they were sharing the kids 50-50 too.
Yeah.
So, we had to navigate all that. But then after the divorce was over, the next summer, it wasn't part of their agreement at all that they would vacation together. They never even mentioned it. It was not even an idea that this would happen. The summer afterwards, I understand from the mental health professional who was more in touch with them at that time that they had rented this house again together, but they spent 1 or 2 weeks together in the home. Overlapping. So the kids could have this sense of family and they could all be there together, and they each had their own individual time.
Yep.
Probably they needed it for themselves as much as anything. Sure. And they had their own time with the kids, and then they had the joint time. And I thought if any couple could rise above where we were and get to that point, I didn't expect it would be them. But
wow,
they did the work, and they found a path that works for them.
Sometimes I think it is just a choice. What do you want to hold on to? What are you going to still be bitter and resentful about? What are you going to double down? My favorite phrase for my clients is it more important to be right or to just make it right? And what could you do to make this situation right and move on? Just set down the baggage. It can't be changed, right? And this idea of forward focus. We're not working on the marriage anymore. So let it go. We're not going to go back. That's just going to poke
the bear. They're not going to change. Your spouse is who you married and who you're divorcing. They're not going to change. But you can.
Yes.
You can do things differently.
Yep.
You can have a different reaction than you did in the past. It's all within us or in each individual.
Is there another case study that comes to mind? I just love when we can illustrate what it looks like and give our listeners that hope of possibility. And remember, listeners, it's never too late to have a good divorce, even if you came through a dumpster fire. What Andrea is talking about today can still be effective with your family.
Karen, you're so correct on that. Another one that was very recent, we check in with our clients after their divorce is over. And this particular client had been divorced about 2 years. And I go, so I've just reached out to her, I don't know, within the last month. And just to find out how she was. And they have 2 adult children. She did not want this divorce. It was a 30-ish year marriage, but the husband wanted a divorce. And, we moved through, again, it was a collaborative divorce. We moved through it. So I find out how she is, and she tells me, and she said, I want to thank you. I didn't call for her gratitude or anything. I'm just really checking in. But at the end, she said, I just want to thank you. If we had not done this collaborative divorce, and if you and the other attorney had not been the way you were with us, I don't think we'd have the relationship we have today. And she said, for example, my ex is had a recurrence of cancer. And when he needed help getting, to doctors or dealing with his treatments, I was there for him. They live a few blocks away from each other.
Beautiful.
And when I was renovating my kitchen, I needed his help measuring the refrigerator. I could order a new refrigerator. He came over and helped me with that. And she said, and they were both very observant of their religion. We celebrate religious holidays still with our children together, our adult children. So we always make a point of that. And oh, wow, that just made me feel so good.
So good. Such a reward. And we just want more of those experiences for families. And Andrea and her team at Vacca Law in Manhattan is there for you. Remind us again some of the resources that you have available and where to find you online.
Okay, so we have so many blogs. I think I've been blogging for 13 years now. I don't know. It's a lot of material. A lot of it's evergreen. And so any question you have about divorce, no matter where you are, we probably have a blog for you. On our it's all on our website, vaccalaw.com, VACCA law.com. There are videos, there's all our podcast episodes, and lots of materials there. And we can get our ebook, Divorce Without Court, A More Peaceful Solution, which really explains mediation, collaborative divorce, and what your options are, and how to know which one might be a good fit for you.
Great. And that's an ebook option.
Ebook, free, so everyone can download that, and it would help you no matter where you are in the country or the world.
Wonderful. And really describe these mediation, collaborative, litigating, right? You have options. So make sure you're doing your research, and that book on Andrea's website sounds like a wonderful resource. What would you say to our listeners in closing after all these years of experience in working with families?
Do your research. Basically, what you just said. Think about the kind of divorce you want, not the process. What do you imagine it would be like? If your best case scenario, how would you want to talk to your spouse? How would you want to advocate for yourself or have somebody advocate for you? How would you want your children to experience the divorce process? And find an attorney, interview different attorneys, especially those who can keep you out of court and are dedicated to doing that. Try them out. Do your Goldilocks thing, see what's a good fit for you. Don't just go with the first attorney that was recommended to you. Even if it was me, do your research, make sure it's a good fit for how you want a divorce and what process is right for you and the outcome. We can't always predict the future, but if you can find somebody who is helping you look to that future, and we'll talk about what's important to you, your interests, your goals, your needs, and not get right into we'll take him for everything he's got, and don't worry, we're going to get it for you. And of course, we want you to be okay. We want everyone to be okay, though.
We want everyone to be okay. Yes, that's in the best interest of the children.
And you, right? Because think about your in-laws. If you still like and respect your in-laws, do you want to preserve that relationship? Oh, the other thing about the couple with the refrigerator and the cancer, she mentioned that their friends also thanked them for not ever asking them to choose between them.
Beautiful.
She mentioned that too. So that's another thing. Maybe you have mutual friends. How you divorce is a ripple effect. Think about that rock being dropped into the water and the ripples. How you divorce matters. And keep that in mind when you're interviewing attorneys and finding the right one for you.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much for joining us here on the Good Divorce Show today. Your story, your background, your expertise. And listeners, I just want to remind you, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Thanks for listening. Do you have questions or thoughts about this week's episode? Let us know by following the Good Divorce Coach on Facebook and Instagram at Good Divorce Coach. And leave a comment. And be sure to tune in every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific or listen anytime wherever you get your podcasts.